Jack Palance really hated him more than anyone else. Jack Palance was born with the name Vladimir Palachno on February 18, 1919 in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Palance's parents came from Ukraine, and he grew up in the rough coal mining area of northeastern Pennsylvania. His father was a coal miner who worked really hard to take care of the family, and young Vladimir even worked in the mines himself before he left to go to college and play sports. This tough early life gave Palance a strength and realness that would become a big part of how he acted on camera. Before he became an actor, Palance went to the University of North Carolina on a football scholarship and even played professional football for a short time, but injuries ended his sports career. When World War II started, he joined the United States Army Air Forces and flew bomber planes. A terrible plane crash during a practice mission burned his face badly and he needed surgery to fix it, which later gave him his special and strong-looking face, something that Hollywood would find really interesting and powerful. After the war ended, Palance went to Stanford University where he learned how to act and eventually started performing on stage. He got his acting experience in theater shows and early television before moving to movies. His big break came in the 1950 movie Panic in the Streets, but it was when he played the scary gunslinger Jack Wilson in Shane in 1953 that really made him famous in movie history. This role got him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, showing how amazingly he could play evil, complicated bad guys with really deep emotions. All through the 1950s and 1960 seconds, Palance became the actor everyone wanted for intense roles where characters weren't clearly good or bad. Starring in movies like Sudden Fear in 1952, with Joan Crawford, which got him a second Oscar nomination, and The Big Knife in 1955, a dark comedy about Hollywood where he played a troubled movie star. His powerful voice, tall body, and serious personality made him perfect for westerns, war movies, and thrillers. He usually played criminals, soldiers, and villains, but always showed some human feelings underneath. Even though he was successful in Hollywood, Palance didn't stick to just one type of movie or one place. He spent a lot of time working in European movies during the 1960s and 1970 seconds, starring in spaghetti westerns and movies made in other countries, including The Mercenary in 1968 and Che in 1969. His willingness to work in other countries showed how talented he was and how popular he was around the world, and also showed that he wanted to play interesting, unusual characters. Later in his acting life, Palance had a big comeback with the 1989 comedy Batman, where he played crime boss Carl Graham, and even more famously in City Slickers in 1991. It was a comedy where he played the tough cowboy Curly Washburn. His acting in City Slickers won him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor when he was 73 years old. His acceptance speech, where he suddenly did a one-handed push-up, was legendary and introduced him to a whole new group of fans. It became one of the most remembered moments in Oscar history, showing both how physically strong he was and his ability to make fun of himself. Palance's last movies included Ebenezer in 1998, a TV Western version of Charles Dickens's famous story A Christmas Carol with Palance as Scrooge, Treasure Island in 1999, Sarah Plain and Tall, Winter's End in 2000, and Prancer Returns in 2001. In 2001, Palance went back to the recording studio as a special guest on friend Lori Z's album Heart of the Holidays to read the famous poem The Night Before Christmas. In 2002, he acted in the television movie Living with the Dead with Ted Danson, Mary Steenburgen, and Diane Ladd. In 2004, he acted in another television show Back When We Were Grown-Ups, again directed by Ron Underwood, with B.L.E. Danner. It was his last time acting. Jack Palance spent a big part of his later life in and around Tallahatchie, California, a mountainous area known for its peaceful landscapes and country charm. The area's natural beauty and quiet loneliness appealed to Palance, who had wanted for a long time to have a peaceful, simple lifestyle away from the fancy and fast-paced world of Hollywood. Living in Tallahatchie let him focus on things he loved like painting, poetry, and working on his ranch. It also showed a return to simple living, just like the tough and serious characters he often played in movies. Palance's personal life had both happy and sad times. He married Virginia Baker in 1949 when his early movie career was going really well. Their marriage lasted almost 20 years, and during that time they raised 3 children together. One of their daughters, Holly Palance, followed what her father did and also became an actress. She became known on her own, appearing in movies like The Omen in 1976, and later co-hosting Ripley's Believe It or Not with her father during the 1980s. Even though Jack and Virginia divorced in 1968, they stayed connected through their children. Sadly, Virginia was killed in a pedestrian accident in Los Angeles on New Year's Day in 2003, something that really hurt Palance, who had stayed friendly with her even after their divorce. In May 1987, Palance got married again, this time to Elaine Rogers. Not much information is known to the public about their marriage because Palance kept his personal life private, choosing to keep family things out of the news. However, the fact that his death certificate said his marital status was divorced suggests that the marriage ended eventually, though details about the separation weren't told to the public. His relationships and family life, while often hidden by his powerful screen presence, show a more complicated and human side to the actor, one shaped by love, loss, and change. Along with his acting career, Palance was a serious visual artist. He loved painting, especially landscapes, which he created and sold privately. Each of his paintings came with an original poem written by hand on the back, adding a personal and thoughtful layer to his art. His work showed a calm, sensitive part of his personality not often seen in the tough, hard roles he played in westerns and dramas. In 1996, his love for writing led to the publication of The Forest of Love, a book of poetry released by Summerhouse Press. The collection showed his thoughtful voice and emotional depth, exploring topics like nature, being alone, and love. Beyond his art and writing, Palance really loved country life and farming. He spent a lot of time working on his ranch located in the Tehachapi Mountains, where he raised cattle and got really into the daily work of ranch life. However, his experience with farm animals led to a big change in his personal values. After years of raising cattle, he couldn't accept the idea of eating the animals he took care of. Because of this, he made the choice to stop eating red meat completely. Once saying simply and honestly, "I couldn't eat a cow," this change showed a caring and ethical side of Palance that was very different from the tough characters he played in movies. Even though he lived far from his birthplace in his later years, Palance stayed connected to his roots in Pennsylvania. Born in the small coal mining town of Latimer Mines, he often talked warmly about his humble beginnings and the hardworking communities where he grew up. He went back to Pennsylvania whenever he could, keeping connections to the land and people that had shaped his early life. In the final years before he died, he sold his farm in Butler Township, Pennsylvania, showing that he was gradually slowing down his active life. Around the same time, he also decided to auction off his personal art collection, possibly as a way to share his creative work with the world while taking care of his personal business. Politically, Palance was known to support the Republican Party, a position he held strongly throughout his life. He didn't hide his views and sometimes showed up at party events. His political beliefs matched his values of independence, hard work, and personal responsibility, ideas he often showed both in his personal life and in the characters he played on screen. Jack Palance really hated him more than anyone else. Alan Ladd. In the world of classic Hollywood grudges, few were as intense, confusing, and long-lasting as the hatred Jack Palance supposedly had for fellow actor Alan Ladd. Even though both men had successful careers in mid-20th century movies, their mutual dislike, especially Palance's deep-seated resentment, became something of a whispered legend among people in the industry. To understand where this tension came from, you have to first think about the huge differences in their personal backgrounds, career paths, and personalities. Jack Palance, born Vladimir Palanek to Ukrainian immigrant parents in Pennsylvania, was a towering figure both in height and in presence. He was known for his tough masculinity, strong features, and an aura of burning intensity that made him a perfect fit for roles as outlaws, villains, and brooding anti-heroes. A former professional boxer and decorated World War II veteran, Palance brought a real edge to his characters, one created through hardship, violence, and survival. His path to stardom was not quick or easy, and he carried with him a strong dislike for fakeness and privilege. Alan Ladd, on the other hand, was a perfect matinee idol, smaller in height, famously blonde, and blessed with a quiet, brooding charm that made him a heartthrob to millions. He was best known for his role in the classic Western Shane in 1953, a movie that also featured Palance in one of his most famous roles as the cold-blooded gunfighter Jack Wilson. However, despite or maybe because of the praise they both received, the experience of working on Shane is often mentioned as the moment. Ming of Shane and their on-screen chemistry, strangely fueled by real-life dislike, resulted in some of the film's most gripping scenes. The final showdown between Shane and Jack Wilson crackled with danger and authenticity in large part because the hatred wasn't entirely an act. Viewers could sense the real friction between the two actors, and it only made the story's emotional impact stronger. In later years, Palance rarely talked publicly about Alan Ladd, but those close to him insisted that the bitterness remained. While Ladd died relatively young in 1964 at the age of 50, Palance lived much longer than him by several decades, continuing to act into his old age and eventually winning an Academy Award for City Slickers in 1992. Yet even in his later years, when thinking about the actors of his generation, he supposedly never said kind words for Ladd. In a rare moment of honesty, Palance is said to have told a biographer that Alan Ladd stood for everything Hollywood got wrong, a harsh criticism from a man who prided himself on artistic integrity and personal toughness. In the end, the rift between Jack Palance and Alan Ladd wasn't just a petty rivalry. It was symbolic of a bigger cultural clash within Hollywood itself. The battle between image and authenticity, studio polish and raw power, surface charm and inner fire. For Jack Palance, Alan Ladd wasn't just a colleague he disliked. He was in Palance's mind the perfect example of the very system he had always fought against. And that made the hatred all the more enduring. Jack Palance, the legendary actor known for his intense screen presence and rugged personality, passed away at the age of 87 on November 10, 2006. His death was from natural causes and happened peacefully at the home of his daughter Holly Palance in Montecito, California. Montecito, a beautiful and peaceful coastal community near Santa Barbara, provided a calm setting for Palance's final days. Holly, his oldest daughter and a former actress and television host in her own right, had stayed close to her father throughout his life, giving him a comforting and loving environment in his later years. The Palance family had always valued privacy, and his passing was marked by dignity surrounded by loved ones rather than the glare of the spotlight that had followed him for decades. In the days after his death, the Palance family and community came together to honor his memory and heritage. A solemn and heartfelt memorial service was held at St. Michael's Ukrainian Catholic Church in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, his hometown and a place deeply woven into his identity. Hazleton was where Palance, born Vladimir Palahniuk to Ukrainian immigrant parents, had spent his early years working hard and dreaming big. The church, rooted in the Ukrainian traditions that shaped his upbringing, was a fitting place to celebrate the life of a man who never forgot his cultural roots despite his Hollywood fame. Friends, family members, and admirers gathered to pay their respects in a service that highlighted not only his movie achievements, but also his lasting humility, generosity, and pride in his heritage. The ceremony reflected the deep connection Palance kept with his Ukrainian-American background and the town that helped shape him before he rose to international stardom.